Alright, so probably seen me or described it in several other videos that always fix your backpacks, you know, like if you're backpacking or whatever, you know, like always carry line and needle. Well, you know, it's like simply it takes a lot to do this. So I'll give an example. The fabric is very thick. That doesn't mean the stitches don't fail. And then once the stitches fail, you have this nice thick fabric bag that, well, has no pockets, has no snaps, has no zipper, something like that. I need pliers. I'm having my wife go and give me pliers right now. She's gonna go and ask the neighbor if they have a pair of pliers. Instead of me spending 300 pesos on a pair of pliers, which I have 1,000 pairs of back in my house, why would I do that? Alright, so that's this part. Got some generally okay stitches. A lot of the times I'll double those stitches, but I'm not doubling them this time. So, yeah. I've tried it before. That one's the green salsa. The verde salsa? Mi esposa, my wife, is eating green habanero taco. Not spicy? No es picante? That... No way, dude. No, yo no quiero fuego de mi culo. No. Soy bien. Yo soy bien. Alright, so this is the finished product here. I can't really remove this. I'm having a hard time removing this. So I've just sort of given up on trying to remove that. But, yeah. So like I said, like as a backpacker, it's only fun sleeping in the street if all your equipment works properly. If your equipment doesn't work properly, then it is definitely not fun sleeping in the street. So, yeah. Yeah, it seems to work good. Good enough to keep my stuff inside the bag. Now, this is just like an extra thing that I figured I'd put into there. I sewed up this pocket on the bottom side. I've sewn up this pocket on the bottom side. I've sewn up these on numerous occasions. I've sewn up this on the bottom side. Just yesterday I sewed up this on the bottom side. I've sewn this back on. I've sewn these back in. This zipper is gone. I should buy a new zipper. Unfortunately, I don't really like using the top of the bag, so I'm really reluctant to actually fix the top of the bag because I don't even use it. But yeah, like some of these things, they're gonna go, and there's not gonna be much of a way to fix them. I mean, I could get like new straps and sew them in, and that's basically like about it. But like in the beginning, I had to sew these things back in. These were the first to go on my bag. They were the very first things to go. These were the second things to go. So like I did some Frankenstein sewing in here, you know. These were like, this bag is a Frankenstein bag. I've literally had this bag for like 4 years. I have hitchhiked and hiked every single place that I can possibly sort of take this bag with me to. This bag will scrunch up, you know, so like right now it's at maximum capacity, but I can scrunch this bag up until it's the size of just this pocket right here. And yeah, it's like, for right now, like these snaps, they're gone. They broke, you know, so like they're supposed to be like this, but smaller, you know, like this one's broken too. So I'm actually at the moment, I'm just using a D-ring, you know, I just sort of pull it over the top. So yeah, I just sort of pull it over the top like so. Then I take the other D-ring and I put it through the tab there. I don't think I can do it with one hand. So yeah. Maybe it's time to get a new bag. I'm not really sure because this is a really great bag. It's got a plastic laminate on the inside of this bag. Most bags do. I don't know if you can see it here. It's like rainproof, this bag. So I'm like reluctant to get rid of it. I've seen a lot of other bags. They're smaller. I don't like them. I really like this bag. It's been with me everywhere. Been with me on all my travels. Yeah, so that's just how I do it. If you're backpacking, you're hitchhiking, you need to have a sewing kit with you. Unless you have a lot of money and you're like one of those people who is like financially stable, who can travel financially stable. But before I met my wife, and actually when I met my wife, we used to do it too. Like we didn't have much money, so we used to go backpacking. We used to go hitchhiking. Though when I met my wife, I had saved up quite a bit of money, so I was capable of sort of getting her a hotel as opposed to her and I sleeping on the street, you know, which I actually did on a lot of occasions when I was backpacking and hitchhiking. I slept on the street in many different locations, many different cities around Mexico. I slept on the street. And this bag, best pillow, best blanket. It's like, yeah, very sentimental bag this is. So, don't have a lot of money. Even if you do have a lot of money and you're in the middle of the boonies, you're going to want to sew your bag up. So, always have a sewing kit with you if you're a big time traveler. Alright, so in this little mini tutorial, the last video that I'm going to give on sewing up your bag is, alright, so I use this thread. It's not actually a very strong thread. It's kind of like I could snap it with my fingers. It's actually a thick thread. It's thicker than this thread. This is like average clothes repair thread, and this is it's a little bit thicker, but it's not very strong. But I use it for all my bags. See, I usually a normal I do like 2-3 different sewing stitch levels, so that you can see here that I've only done one. This will probably start failing after about a month of use. I also recommend that if you're going to do sewing like that you have pliers with you. Needle nose pliers are my preference. These are my neighbor's pliers. I used to have pliers with me. I sort of lost them on my travels. I also recommend having a little bit of rope with you. Doesn't matter really how much rope, as long as it's like more than probably about around 10 foot. I would say 10 foot, because you're going to want to, like, if something fails on your bag big time, you're going to want to tie your bag, like, you know, wrap it all around your bag, just make your bag one big ball so that you don't lose your stuff. The other thing that I would say is that I personally, I like to use Dacron thread. It's a sail product. Usually people sail, their sails are made of Dacron. They use a thread that is also made of Dacron. There's a lot of different types of threads that are like that are very strong. These threads, they break easily. If you get a thread that's really strong, see, the problem with getting a thread that's really strong is that I said earlier in the video that your stitches will fail before the fabric does. Well, if you use a Dacron thread, your fabric will fail before the stitches do. And it may actually tear open the fabric, which would lead to you not having your backpack for very long. So, and you give torsion and stress to your bag in those different stitch locations, you're going to want your thread to break first and not break your backpack. Because once it destroys your backpack, that's it. You gotta go buy a new backpack. Doesn't matter how many times you stitch it up. If it just starts fraying apart, you can't keep stitching it. So some of the things that I take with me are like these needles, and I bought these at the store the other day. Normally I just have like a small sewing kit with me. These needles are quite sizable. I got a packet of, I'm guessing it might be about 30 here for about 25 pesos. They're pretty sizable needles. I use them for very thick fabrics, sometimes leather or canvas, but a little tiny sewing kit like this, like a little tiny packet, it does the trick. It's got about 7, 8 different types of needles in there. You're going to want to have some with big heads. I prefer bigger heads. I don't care how difficult it is to push it through the fabric, because the bigger the head, the thicker the thread you can use, the stronger your stitching will be, because normal stores only have regular cotton thread. They're not going to have Dacron, they're not going to have something special. When I was traveling, I think I walked like 700 miles in the same pair of shoes from Peru to Mexico. And I found that I didn't want to buy new shoes. I really liked the shoes that I had. I really liked the way that they look, and the way that they felt. And so I actually stitched them up using a wire fishing leader. So like the leader that stops the fish's teeth from breaking your line, it's a wire leader, it's a multi-strand. I actually took that, laced it through a needle, and sewed up my shoes with it. And you step on this and it'll break, you step on a wire leader, it's not going to sort of break. So so I sewed up my shoes with a wire leader, and that seemed to work pretty well. I've done it on a few occasions. I did it with 2 different pairs of shoes. The one pair of shoes lasted me 700 miles, and it was actually quite fantastic. Another thing that I use is the different types of needles that I use. I like to use these needles. It's a curved needle. The thing about these is that you can use them for a lot of different things. If you're getting into a tight place like I was getting into in here, where there's a risk that you're going to stab your finger with say a larger needle, you go through the fabric and you can't see where you're going, you're going to stab yourself with. This is actually my go-to, because as it comes through, it curves through. A lot of the times I'll use these with semi-thick fabric so that I can get a hook effect and pull the fabric open slightly as I'm going through. You can also wiggle it. You can wiggle the needle as you're going through the fabric and widen the hole up. You can push it through that way. The other thing is, I believe they're called safety pins. It's just like a little pin that's got spring loaded. It's got a needle on one side, and then you close it, you can catch it into itself. It's like a safety pin, I guess it's called. I don't like using tacks. I'd rather use safety pins, but you keep the safety pins. If you've got a really big failed spot, you use the safety pins just to keep the fabric in line with where you want it, and then you sew it up so that it stays in line. So I figured that I would put it in, make sure my camera's still recording. Yep. I figured I would put it into this, that in my time backpacking, I went to some very, very dangerous places. My father, he sailed around the world. He didn't sail around the world, he sailed around the Atlantic. He sailed across about 5 times, from England to Brazil and the Caribbean and the United States. And he hitchhiked through India, and he didn't hitchhike through India, he hitchhiked through Europe. and hiked through North Africa, and he did a lot of different stuff in his day, and he did some very dangerous type of traveling. And things weren't so bad back in those days. I mean, there was less technology, so it was a little bit more dangerous in certain aspects. However, nowadays, there's organized crime. It's very well known that if you go to Mexico as a tourist, you're going to get robbed or kidnapped. I went to a lot of very dangerous places, slept on the streets, did some very dangerous things. I see people on YouTube doing that, posting it on YouTube. They don't like being videotaped. A lot of people don't like being videotaped. In the places that they live, they find it very disrespectful. If you're videotaping them, just making it like publicizing a tourist economy, that's different. If you go into a low-down neighborhood and you videotape their lives, their lifestyles, they could get very angry at you, and they could actually very badly harm you. So when I was traveling, I wouldn't videotape things like that. Also, I have some background training with, I'm going to probably say fighting. I have a very sort of good understanding of tactical situations and consequence as well. So a lot of people who just begin traveling or don't have much of a knowledge of some sort of background to these things, I would advise you, there's always a bigger fish, or you're not going to be capable of handling the situation. I have very good cardio, so like, the movie Zombieland, rule number 1 is cardio, I guess. I'm not sure which rule it actually was, but you gotta have good cardio. I ran blocks. I ran 15 blocks when I was in Cancun. A taxi driver stopped in the middle of the night when I was going to the pharmacy. Stopped on the side of the road, peeled rubber, turned around. I told him, I said I wasn't looking for a ride. I knew where I was going, and him and this other gentleman in the car, person, they chased me for about 15 blocks. I knew the streets really well. I made them go down a dead-end road, and then I crossed through the alleyway onto the other side. I knew that it was going to take them about 10 minutes to turn back around onto the main road, so I just went back about my business. However, normal people, if you're not used to dealing with traumatic types of situations, I would advise you not to travel. I would advise you not to put yourself in these kinds of situations. I would advise you not to go into neighborhoods, low-down neighborhoods, and do YouTube videos of these kinds of things. I personally don't, and for a very good reason. So yeah, if you want to go backpacking, you want to go and have fun, you can do it by yourself. You can go do dangerous things. Be really, really careful about it. I'm not really that good at fighting. I know that I could sucker punch somebody, probably get away with it, but that's about it. I can run really fast. I've done parkour. I used to do extreme sports. I've done some fighting. I have a fair background with fighting, like some general hand-to-hand combat, but nothing too serious. I'm not a black belt. I think I might be like maybe like a yellow belt. I don't even think I made it to a green belt. So. And when I was traveling, I wouldn't smoke, I wouldn't drink, I would not do marijuana or any other kinds of drugs. I would keep my mind completely clear, and I would keep my health in a very, very well apexed manner, so that I could run for my life, which I had to do on several occasions, that I could fight for my values, stop thievery, which I had to do on several occasions. I advise you not to carry a knife, which I did in the beginning of my travels. I advise you to carry pepper spray, because if something does go down that's really bad, you're not going to want to feel guilty. So just carry pepper spray. It's a much safer alternative than getting into a fight with, say, a dog, trying to stab them and losing a piece of your arm, and you could just pepper spray them when they start barking at you. Seems to work a lot better that way. I've had to pepper spray dogs in the past. There's been several gangs of dogs who find me to be their next piece of steak, apparently, and I've had to pepper spray them as well. So I advise you, if you are traveling, if you're backpacking alone, if you're doing that kind of thing, don't be dumb about it. really, really don't be dumb about it. That's my best advice. Go with somebody else. Don't do it alone. My dad, he said he had a lot of different experience in traveling. He says that I'm lucky to be alive. I don't know how I'm still alive. Apparently I'm still here. I don't know how I got through all of that I did, but I'm still here. I'm not sure if the next guy who did the same thing would be. So don't do it in a stupid way. And probably don't do it alone either. So yeah, one last thing I want to put into here is that when you're stitching up these parts, these bags, you're going to have to cut the stitches open. You're going to have to inlay the strap back into the hole and re-stitch it up from the inside. You'll notice that on some of these bags there's an interior stitching. It's actually on the opposite side of this fabric hole. So maybe I can show you from this side. Yeah. So there's this stitch hole, and it goes inside of that laminate. There's also this side, it comes through with this one. You want to take care of your bags, you want to take care of your goods, you don't want to lose anything on your travels. Stay safe, stay happy, have fun.